Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to go over how to create your own functions in Google Sheets. So this is a cool new feature that I just noticed Google Sheets has rolled out, and I'm going to show you how you can create a function to calculate compounded annual growth. And so compounded annual growth is basically normalizing how much one value has increased over time. So in this example, I'm going to use Amazon sales. So in 2010, Amazon had 34.2 billion in annual revenue. In 2021, it had up to 469.8 billion. So that's a significant amount of growth. And rather than saying it's increased 14 times since then, or grown to 14 times the size, using something like compounded annual growth, we can normalize that to say, okay, on average, how much has it grown over the years? So to calculate the compounded annual growth rate, what you can do is take the new value, the most recent one, divide it by the original one, 34.2. So that's where you can see it's 13.7 times what it was in 2010. Now that's hard to conceptualize because it's such a large number. So using to calculate a compound annual growth rate, we can normalize that. And to do that, we take that change and raise it to the inverse number of years. So 1 divided by 11 years from 2010 through to the end of 2021. That's 11 years. So 1 divided by 11. So this would be the equivalent of raising it to a power of negative 11. So effectively working backwards. So that tells us it's grown by 26.9% yearly on average. Not every year, but that's what that does. So I'll prove that out. So calculated growth. So if we start with 34.2 as our starting point and say, okay, we're assuming that it's going to continue growing at 26.8949% every year, right? So for the first year, it's going to be 43.4. Obviously, it's not the same as this one. But if we continue on this pattern, on this assumption, what's going to happen is eventually that gap is gone, right? So we can see that, okay, Amazon's growth, obviously it didn't grow 27% every single year consistently, but that's what it averaged out to be over 11 years, right? There were some years where it had much bigger growth than anticipated, and some years where it was smaller. As you can see, there's always going to be some differences between the calculated growth rate and the actual one. So this one is just based on normalizing that data. So I'm going to create a custom function in Google Sheets that allows you to do this without having to create, without having to prove this out, without having to create these multiple steps. We can create that through a simple function. And so on the data tab, on the data menu, there's an option for named functions. So if I click on this, there's an option to add a new function. And for the function name, I'm going to call it CAGR for compounded annual growth rate. I can enter a description if I wanted to. So calculates compounded annual growth rate. Argument placeholders. So these are the arguments that I'm going to use. So I'm going to enter an old value, new value. Actually, I have to head and enter new value, and then years. So those are the arguments that my function is going to utilize. And so for the formula, this is where I'm going to spell out how my formula should be calculated. So you'll recall I initially started with the new value divided by the old value. So what I'm going to do is enter new value divided by old value and raise that again to the power of 1 divided by the number of years. So that's my function. It's using the variables that I've set up here, and it follows the same logic as I set up in my formula here. So I'm going to hit next, and you can put in additional details like what the old value should be, what the new value is. Let's say original value, and I'm going to put, let's say, today's value, And for the description, we put number of years since, right? Create, and now we've got our function here. So here we have a list of now our named functions. So you can continue adding to this list if you wanted more functions. And as you can see, you can even import functions that you've created in other Google Sheets files. So that's a really cool thing. So you can continue to carry these functions on from one sheet to another. So now let's try out that new function. So CAGR, and sure enough, it shows there. It shows my description, calculates compounded annual growth rate. So I can open up this. I've got my old value, my new value, and the number of years. So my old value is 34.2. My new value is going to be 9.8. And then now if I click on this, you'll see I've got more details about this. So these are the details that I've entered for number of years since, today's value. So the details that you enter in, they'll show up in here under this named function when you click on this arrow to expand it. And so the last argument I had was for number of years. And again, that was 11 years. So I close that out, and we can see we've got that same exact value. So instead of going through these steps and writing out the formula myself, I can create that function in Google Sheets and have it saved so I can easily access it in the future. I don't have to go back and double check my formula or anything like that. I know that it works. I've set it up here, and it's saved in this Google Sheets file, and I can import it, put it into another Google Sheets file that I want to use. So a really cool feature in Google Sheets. This is similar to Excel's Lambda functions that Excel recently rolled out, where you can create custom functions of your own. Now, the advantage of doing it in Google Sheets is obviously you don't have to worry about if someone's on a different version, because Google Sheets only has the one version. So it's a lot easier to share this and use this across different spreadsheets. Whereas with Excel, you have to be on the latest version of Excel to have access to those Lambda functions. But with Google Sheets, you can easily do that. Simply go to your named functions, and you can go ahead and create a new function if you wanted to, and continue adding to this list. So a really cool new feature to take advantage of if you use Google Sheets.